access, and here comes the horse's carriage. Oh, they're turning. Maybe. All right. So the city of Sacramento originally buried all of its members or residents near Sutter's Fort, very low land level, so this area was designated as that time outside of the city limits, and that's where we started to bury all of our residents. The first burial here is in 1849. This tour is for stories of some of the residents buried here that were Masons, and we have the distinct pleasure of having two Masons here in Sacramento. One of them wearing a very distinct type of uniform, which they will explain to you, because to put it on, they want to explain the significance of everything to you. This is Fred Smith and Malcolm Hill. I am Tina and Troy Blessing, my husband. We are the guides.
Okay, welcome. Fred Smith, like you said, he's a past Grand Commander of the state of California. My name's Malcolm Hill. I'm a past Grand Junior Steward of the state of California. Okay? This is the uniform that we wear today. It's based on a British Naval's uniform. No, we do not wear the chapeau sideways. Although most of us have tried. Significance are Maltese Cross, that stands for the Grand Commandery. Some of the medals that we have, most of them have past commanders. I was a commander of my commandery. This was given to me by my commandery. It's a meritorious service award. Not everybody gets these, so I was very pleased when they gave it to me. Past Commanders Association, and then the Maltese Cross when I became a Knight of Malta. Okay? The sword itself is mainly ceremonial, but it is sharp, it is pointy. It can do some damage. I know, I've stuck myself a couple of times. The scabbard itself is gold plate. The ends, the middle, and the hilt is solid gold. Okay? These are not cheap.
Yeah.
Okay?
We're going to pay for this one, yeah.
Now, you'll notice the difference between Fred's and mine. And he's got purple, I've got red. Past Grand Commander, I didn't make it that far. So, he's got the camera.
Got the camera out.
Okay. So now I'm going to turn it over to Fred to explain this thing.
Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Fred, as everybody already knows. Now, what I start off with is a little history, because what I got on is a lot of history behind it. In 1850, what was happening in California in 1850? All right, the gold rush was pretty well in full swing. Something else happened in 1850. What happened in 1850?
Statehood.
Okay, we got statehood, 36th state of the Union. Another thing happened, a young man back east, like from New York, who was also a Knights Templar, decided he was going to come out here, California, and make his millions. Not searching for gold, but other entities. And he did just that. His name was Isaac Davis. As a Knights Templar in New York, and he knew he was coming out here, he was commissioned to create the Grand Commandery of the state of California. And when he got out here, he started doing just that. Now, I said Isaac Davis. Does everybody know the little town of Davis, west of us? It's named after him. Also, University of California at Davis, all the property that the Davis campus is on today was donated by either him or his family. We're not too sure. He was a lawyer, politician, and somewhere when they built the courthouse, the federal courthouse here in Sacramento, he laid the chief cornerstone to that building. I believe that's the one on Capitol Avenue. It's one of the two, just in front of the Capitol. Okay, now while I'm here, now he showed up on that morning to lay that cornerstone. He showed up in a uniform just like the one I'm going to put on. The coat, old style, like Civil War style, World War I style coat. This is of pure wool. It's heavy, and I'm warm now. Okay, now we'll put this on. This is a baldric. Anybody know what a baldric is? Or where it come from? The word, the name. Okay, way back when the Romans were wearing a short sword, not a big long one, but a short one, they put a leather strap over their shoulder to carry the sword, and they call it a baldric. This is an ornamental type baldric, and up until around the turn of the century, about like in the 40s or 50s, here in the States, everybody wore a green baldric, all the Sir Knights, and it carried their sword. This is more ornamental. He's got that hook, and he's going to hook it on. So it doesn't fall off my shoulder. If it wasn't hooked, they will fall off. Now here's the cape. Now, Isaac Davis had a cape on just like that. That goes underneath, the other one goes underneath.
Yeah.
We'll get it on here in a minute. Takes two guys. Now when we get all the members of California One together with this uniform on, we help each other put it on. Now in order to receive a uniform like this, it doesn't belong to me, by the way. It belongs to California Commandery Number 1. And upon my whatever happens to me, I have instructions that this uniform will be returned to California One. In 18, somewhere around in there, right after they built that courthouse, federal courthouse, Isaac Davis showed up in a uniform just like this. Okay, now he had, the only difference was his jabot had the big black feathers on it. The stringy type feathers, except for an ostrich plume. That sucker's so old it's falling apart. And this is what and he had leggings on. This embroidery, just like this. He had his horse with the cover on the front and the cover on the back with the embroidery like this. Now this uniform that he wore, this one here in particular, he didn't wear this one, is well over 100 years old. Can you hear me okay? Okay. The fabric you see here is silk velvet. This embroidery in silver here is pure silver from the silver mines in Nevada City. The gold you see is in the Maltese cross, and on the baldric is pure gold from the gold rush of California, which is right here. They had to take silver and the gold, and they shipped it to France. Now, by way of Cape Horn, Panama Canal was not there. And France had a factory that would take the gold and weave it into thread. And that thread deal. Then they shipped it all back. And the plant actually made the silk velvet material and the lining, which looked like it's brand new yet. Well, I'd say this uniform is well over 100 years old. It has to be now because that plant was destroyed in France during World War I. Never to be rebuilt again. I don't think there's anybody around, I know one person, that can fix it, the thread when they come apart. There was a cape that I had, like this one, but all you see here in silver was also pure gold. We know there was only 2 of them capes made. And I was in possession of one for many years. I won't tell you how I got possession of it, but I ended up with it. It started unraveling. So I said, oh boy, something we gotta get done. Well, a young lady where we used to work, where I used to work, where he worked, and Tina, she's retired too now, was always crocheting, doing needlework and stuff, and I asked her if she was capable of looking at something that I had that I needed to get fixed. And I told her it was the cape. She said, well, let me look at it. I showed it to her, and it's all pure gold. And she said, oh man, that could be something. Well, she did fix it. And it made it look like almost brand new. Well, that cape today is at Grand Lodge of California, which is in San Francisco. And the Grand Lodge, I don't know if you know where it's at. It's on California Street, right at the top of the Knob Hill, right across the street from the Grace Cathedral. There's a museum there, and that's where that cape is today. And this cape, as you see, is in silver, gold. It's what they call a past commander's cape. There's only the other one is pure gold. The commander of that commander gets to wear it, and he gets to only wear it 1 year. As we change offices every year. I'm losing my train of thought. Again, say it's well over 100, and the whole thing weighs about 16 pounds. Use the baldric, cape, coat, sword. And I do know how to use the sword. These things to rebuild or make them, I don't know what it would cost, but it would be a lot of dollars. Or even my chapeau is falling apart. It's over 100 years old also. Don't know anybody. I guess there's somewhere that would probably fix this. Or maybe have another one made. I don't know which. But,
Well, he's putting all his stuff away. I won't call it what I was going to call it. Okay. We used to wear, and we still do wear, a blue coat. We don't want to wear our uniforms. And we used to wear this apron with our blue coats. We don't wear these anymore at all. So those of us that have one, we're lucky to have one. Because you can buy them, but they're not the same. And as you can see, this one's pretty old. It's pretty getting yellow and tarnished and nasty looking. But yeah, these are rare to find. Fred's got one, I've got one, and we just don't wear them anymore. We just keep them hidden away.
We're still authorized to wear, but we don't wear them. skull and crossbones signifies that was an ancient Christian symbol of burial.
It's not pirates.
Rather than folding arms there, they crossed the arms. And that's the way, if you go over in any European countries, they may still have some here in the United States, I don't know. Burial grounds, you'll see the monument sometimes, and it'll show them, and it'll have their arms crossed like that. That signifies crossbones skull. So it's an old, ancient Christian burial symbol, not something else that Hollywood come up with. Okay, now go ahead with Tina. I'll follow along with you, and if you have any questions you want to ask me when they're not talking, ask me and I'll try to answer it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to give them just a minute to put all that stuff away. We're going to start heading up this direction. A little taste of some Masons of California, both past and present, just so you know that it's not just some benevolent society that you don't know any of these people. There were George Washington, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, Garfield, McKinley, Taft, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harding, Harry S. Truman, and Gerald Ford were all Masons. Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, Paul Revere, John Paul Jones. Some of the military leaders of this nation: Douglas MacArthur, Eddie Rickenbacker, Jimmy Doolittle, John Pershing, Omar Bradley, Sam Houston, Jim Bowie, Davy Crockett, John Wayne, Burl Ives, Roy Rogers, Danny Thomas, Ernest Borgnine, Red Skelton, Clark Gable, Will Rogers, Audie Murphy, Gene Autry, Winston Churchill, Edward VII, George VI, Aaron Burr, George McGovern, Barry Goldwater, Thomas Dewey, William Jennings Bryan, Jefferson Davis, Lewis and Clark, both, Charles Lindbergh, Kit Carson, Henry Ford, Richard Byrd, Walter P. Chrysler, J.C. Penney, Ty Cobb, Jack Dempsey, Arnold Palmer, Mark Twain, Buzz Aldrin, Virgil Grissom, Rudyard Kipling, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Oscar Wilde, Norman Vincent Peale, Harry Houdini. Those are just a few to name. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin. There are Masonic lodges all over the country, all over the world. They don't talk about what they are all about unless you ask them. So during this tour, if you want to ask them questions when we are in between telling stories, please do so. We're very lucky to have them here today. We're going to head down this direction. Huge amount of the height of the pine. The Rose Garden here in the city cemetery has historic significance. It's on the national and worldwide register of historic rose gardens. Some of the patents came over with the pioneers of California. First of all, if I can get Troy to get up here. Troy? Kirchhoff is the first story. You were just here last weekend doing it for us. Always changes.
So, see you guys. Just south of here, in the Delta regions, it's Cortland. Have any of you been to Cortland before? Okay. So, one of the biggest produce items that come out of there are pears. And California is known for its pears. It's known for, you know, many of its crops. But that the Delta region has some of the finest pears in the world. And we have two former Masons that are buried here that were also pear farmers. And they were neighbors, they were competitors, but they were friends as well. And Mr. Kercheval and Mr. Green, they decided that they were going to come to the city and buy their plots in the late 1800s or the late 1880s. So when Mr. Kercheval said, "I'm going to go to the city, purchase my plot," Mr. Green said, "I think I will too." Kercheval comes, he picks out his plot. Mr. Green picks out his plot right next to him. And again, they were competitors, but still friends. Now, if you look behind me, you'll see two large monuments. And those are Mr. Kercheval and Mr. Green. Now, I'm going to tell you that Mr. Kercheval passed away first. Can you guess which one is Mr. Kercheval? Because there was always competition, because Mr. Green went last. His was a little bit taller. Just enough to say, look what I can do. Both of them were councilmen at one point. They both belonged to the Sacramento Lodge that was here on J Street, and the old one, not the one that's in use right now, but the old one that was down by 5th Street, I believe. And when in 2 years, actually coming up 3 years ago now, we had those really severe storms in 2017. There used to be a tree right there, and one of the limbs came down and it hit the Green monument. And so you can see that she's turned that way. Well, she used to be facing due west. They both were. So in the process of it being hit, it was spun, and when we had some people come out, some Masons, modern day Masons, come out and take a look at it, make sure it was safe to stay that way. They said it would be better if you left it alone than for us to turn it back, because we could do more damage turning it back. So we like to think that she got tired of looking the same direction as Mr. Kercheval, and she's now looking southwest. So these are just two examples of everyday people that are Masons. They were pear farmers, councilmen. Mr. Kercheval was an assemblyman for the state later on. He actually died in office. But Mr. Green was a state senator for a while. And it's everyday people, just like Fred and Malcolm. They go about their daily lives, but they give a little bit extra as Masons. And that's the story of Kercheval and Green.
Would you like to say a little bit about what Masons do for the community?
Okay, bye-bye. Well,
Will you say a little bit about what the Masons do for the community?
okay, there are somewhere in the vicinity of 3 million Masons in the United States. We donate a little over $3 million per day to charitable organizations. And they're not all Masonic charity organizations. In Commandery, we have what we call the Knights Templari Foundation. And they probably somewhere every year donate to eye research, correction of eyes, somewhere in the vicinity of $6 million a year. There's several hospitals that received the money. When I was Grand Commander, I had the privilege of presenting a $60,000 check for eye research in San Francisco, in the, well, it's way down there off of Soak, if I remember where it was at. And I was talking to the lady doctor that received the money as a grant. And she says, yeah, we are working with blindness in children before they're even born. We go working on ways to discover if the child will be born blind. Then I said, man, that's got to be something. She says, yeah. And if we do discover that the child will be born blind, we can correct it before. And this is what, well, it's, you know, they're making the baby, I guess, so to speak, or while the baby is in mama's belly. And that's amazing. And I don't know how far that research has gone today, and not because that was what, 20 years ago. So they're just doing tons of work. The Shrine Hospital, for instance, the one here in Sacramento, is the elite of the elite hospitals for crippled children, the burn center, and
Orthopedics.
what else they have done, I don't know.
They got a ton.
It is the elite hospital of the elite hospitals.
Now, besides all that, how many have been to Hawaii? Okay, how many went out to the Pearl Harbor?
Out to the monument.
Monument at Pearl Harbor. Okay, that was built by Masons, the Grand Lodge of Hawaii. That was not done by the government or any other organizations. That was purely Masonic. When they did the rebuild on the Statue of Liberty, everybody heard DuPont and some of the other big corporations donated money. The Masons donated the bulk of it. We didn't ask for any thank yous or honorable mentions. We just donated it. The Washington Memorial that was just redone, we did that one too.
All
So,
by Masonic funds.
and it's just donations from us.
The Statue of Liberty was donated to us by a fellow that was a sculptor from France. He was also a Mason. He visited New York, and he was so impressed with our lodge in New York that he built small statues. This is one of the first projects he did for a giant statue. The one that's on Ellis Island is not the first one. There was another one. It sunk on the way over. Yeah, it's still out there in the middle of the Atlantic somewhere, I guess. But when they floated him across and they redid it, that was his second work for the Statue of Liberty. And that's how it got there, the statue, because he was so impressed with our Masonic work in the United States.
I went to Philadelphia, and I went to the Philadelphia Grand Lodge. And I was waiting for the tour. And they have a little museum there that you can walk through. And I was standing there, and I had my hand on the desk. And one of the docents walked up and go, you know what you got your hand on? A desk? No, that's where they signed the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
It's just out in the open, and anybody can touch it.
It's about that big.
And he said, really? Well, I'm not touching that anymore.
Yeah. I had the privilege of placing my hand on a Bible that George Washington signed when he became president of the United States. And they had it at Grand Lodge in San Francisco. And it was well guarded.
Oh, yeah.
The case they had to put in probably weighed more than a couple of these statues out here. It was well guarded, and then you can walk up place your hand on it. And it's quite a thrill. This is something that George Washington signed when he was become the first president. And he was also a master mason. Our founding fathers were all master masons. And if anybody really wants to know what a mason is, one all has to do is read the Declaration of Independence, the entire document. That tells you what a mason is, right there.
I have a question. You're very, very passionate about being a member of this group. How old were you when you joined?
I was 40 years ago. I was 36, I believe, 37. My story goes way back when I was growing up. I knew of DeMolay, although I was a Boy Scout, so I never did get involved in DeMolay, which is a Masonic-sponsored youth group for boys aged 11 to 20.
They have the same thing for girls, only it's Rainbow or Job's Daughters.
And Job's Daughters, yeah. My wife was a Rainbow girl, and I got my daughter and 4 granddaughters. 5 granddaughters. 5. Then they're all Rainbow.
I met all 5.
And most of them have reached their majority now. I got one granddaughter that we hope may become a grand officer next year for Rainbow. I knew while I was in the service, Air Force, I was stationed in Germany, and the fellow I worked for was a master mason. And he talked to me about masonry endlessly. And if I had stayed in, I'd probably been a mason 50 plus years ago. But as it turned out, I was 36, I believe.
Hey, Fred, I just wanted to point out to everybody here, these 2 folks right here. This gentleman right here was a Mason, and his wife was a daughter of the Eastern Star. And I know they'll talk a little bit more about it later on, but the Daughters of the Eastern Star organization along with the Masons, correct?
Yeah. They're,
You can tell by the square and compass here, and then the star. And don't confuse the upside down star with Satan. With Satan. That's not what that is.
Yes.
the Eastern Star symbol, yeah.
Do you think the Masons are growing, or are they?
We growing?
Are they getting?
Okay.
Oh,
more
we're getting
or
bigger,
less?
yes.
Are you-
There was a time when, and it wasn't too long ago, we were actually shrinking. Our members were dying off and the younger fellows weren't coming in. Now, that is starting to reverse. Because some of the younger members are actually looking for something to do outside the home. So they're actually starting to come back to Masonry, which is good.
Yeah,
You know?
that's great.
You know, and unfortunately, the wives become what we call Masonic widows because the husbands are never home. Once you join this organization, you're never home. There was at one point, Fred and I were on the road together 6 days a week.
Easy.
You know, we went everywhere. We went from Southern California to Northern California into Nevada, and
Arizona.
that was in one day. Just, I mean, we were all over the place.
I wore out 2 vehicles already.
How do you raise the majority of your funds?
Donations.
So similar to Rotary, where you pull it out of your own pocket?
Yep.
Correct. Fred will tell you, when I go to my organization in Auburn for Commandery, and we have potlucks, everybody pulls out like a $20 bill. I'll pull out 100 and give it to them.
It goes to the Masonic.
And it goes to the kids, it goes to the youth, because they're the ones that put on the dinners. And a dinner that shouldn't cost more than $5, I'll pay $100 for. Not because I'm rich and I can afford it. No, it goes to the kids. So I would rather support them for doing what they're doing than to give it to like the Goodwill or something like that. where, I hate to say it, the Goodwill's a good organization, but it's the only organization I know.
It's a lot of money.
It's the only organization I know. You give them something, they sell it and make a profit. Costs them nothing. So, you know, it's like I say, it's a good organization, but I'd rather give it to the Masonic youth. That's
All right,
why I
we'll,
donate.
we'll take some more questions in a few so we can move along. Is the pioneer section of the cemetery? Headstone, he and his wife Harriet are buried there. William F. Knox was the man who, after the Great Flood of 1861-62, which was considered the worst storm in Sacramento, California, West Coast history, he helped lift the streets. If you've heard of the underground tours that run out of the city of Sacramento and Old Sacramento, William F. Knox is one of the men that we talk about on those particular tours because he worked for the Central Pacific Railroad and he lifted the streets, the majority of them, building bulkhead and buttress type walls, retaining walls to keep the streets of Sacramento up on a new high level instead of the original street level, which is floodplain level at that time especially. And in doing so, saved the city of Sacramento. So William F. Knox is buried right there. The next person we're going to talk about is this nice large headstone. You see it is the tallest monument in the city cemetery. And that is the monument for Albert Neighbor Wynn. Albert Neighbor Wynn. Known to the city of Sacramento and the historical societies as the person who founded the California Pioneers Association and the Native Sons of the Golden West. And I'll tell you a little bit about him, but he has a really long story. He started out here in Sacramento in 1850 as a coffin vendor. Set up a couple of coffins next to a tree, and down here you can see the enormity of these things. He arrived in California June 25th of 1849, started selling coffins at Front and K Street. He immediately sold one for $50. And what was going on here in 1850? We had floods. The original street level was right level with the Sacramento River, so if you can imagine about 25 feet below the current street level in Old Sacramento, that's the original street level, and the only ones that knew that the American and Sacramento rivers flooded every year were the Native Americans, and they weren't telling any of these individuals coming here. So he was elected to the Sacramento City Council on August 1st of 1849 and as its president on August 25th. He was a member of the Independent Order of Oddfellows, and he provided assistance and relief and helped organize for people who were suffering and having illnesses and distress. Not only those who were already here in Sacramento, but people that got off ships. And you have to imagine, you're on a ship, if you were going around the tip of the Horn of South America, you're on there for months. And you have dysentery and all kinds of wonderful diseases, and you're getting off the ships and you're not in the greatest of health to begin with when you get off the ships. He helped provide relief for some of these individuals. And he became, in the fall of 1849, Sutter gave Albert Mavor Wynn power of attorney to sell land, as if it was Sutter's to sell to begin with. He kind of owned it in a kind of sort of way, and he was Sutter's agent for selling plots of land in the farms on the Sacramento and the Feather Rivers. He also borrowed $5,000 of money in Sutter's name without letting Sutter know that he did. And Sutter learned of this indebtedness only when the sheriff served an attachment to him, and by the time that he found out about it, it had already grown to $35,000. So he was doing some things that probably wouldn't be considered very genuine to do. Well, he organized all kinds of different establishments for arts and craftsmen, and he also organized cement workers and union workers to start their own agencies, and he established the Grace Episcopal Church in the city of Sacramento also in 1849. And he moved to San Francisco by 1860 and engaged in real estate. He was a regular contributor to the New York Age and the Daily Alta of California, which was one of the first newspapers here in Sacramento and in California. He stayed out of directly supporting either Union or the Confederacy during the Civil War, but his sympathies remained with his native Virginia, which is where he had originated from. And in 1862, struck a roster list of dead from the Battle of Shiloh, and he was grief-stricken because some of his family members actually died during that conflict. He actually died in Sonoma, California, and his body was taken back to Sacramento for funeral, and that was by 1876. By that time, he organized the body that is now known as the Sons of the American Revolution. And so the Native Sons of the Golden West and the Daughters of the Native Sons of the Golden West are two huge organizations here in California. A lot of the monuments that you see that have a placard next to them are donated by those organizations. There's also, and this is kind of interesting to mention, the fact that the Clamper organization also have erected a lot of the little memorials and placards in and around the city of Sacramento. Everyone thinks of them as this drinking organization, but actually a lot of these organizations did have a lot of alcohol being consumed at their events, but they were all true brethren, Masons, Oddfellows, the volunteer firemen, the woodmen of the world. If somebody in your organization died and they had wife and children, those individuals left behind would never want for a place to live or for food for their bellies. These individuals have always stood up for these individuals in their time of need. And they made sure that there was always a decent burial for these individuals as well. So these are awesome organizations. They're humans like everybody else, but they are wonderful people. So the next person that we're going to do is Thomas Jefferson Clooney, and I'm not going to walk all the way over. Up on the second tier photograph. I have a photograph of him, and if you want to pass that around, we don't have a lot of pictures of a lot of these individuals, but the Honorable Thomas Jefferson Clooney, he was born on a sailing vessel off the coast of Newfoundland in 1852. He was brought to California during the 1850s by his parents and was educated in Sacramento public schools and studied law. The youngest man who ever practiced law in the state. He had taken 3 years of his minority off his minority by a legislative enactment so that he might become a lawyer in spite of the law at that time for legal age to become an attorney. At that time it was 21, and so he was 18. He had a special bill introduced into the legislature relieving him of his disabilities as a minor and allowing him to practice law at the age of 18 if he could secure the necessary license from the Supreme Court. His efforts won the passage of a statute by unanimous vote of both houses, entitling him to practice law as soon as he might be qualified by an examination before the Supreme Court. The first time such a thing had ever been done in the history of California, and has never been repeated. He had the moral and fiber, never tasted liquor, never tasted tobacco. In 1875, he was elected to the California State Legislature. He was appointed Brigadier General of the 4th Brigade, California National Guard in 1876. 1878, he was a candidate for Congress, but he was defeated. In 1886, he was elected state senator, and his election to Congress came in 1888. When he was a boy, he sold papers on the streets of Sacramento and attended night schools to complete his education. Much of his popularity and renown was due to his ability to see life from all sides and to his broad conception of his duty to his fellow men. He amassed a fortune during his lifetime, his realty holdings being the Clooney Opera House in Sacramento, Clooney Building in San Francisco. He was also an elk, as well as being a Mason. He died on June 30th, 1903 at the age of 52. That is Thomas Jefferson Clooney.
As
And
in the Clooney
somewhere-
Library? The Clooney Library?
Here in Sacramento.
Did he have any other buildings besides that?
Just the one in San Francisco, also called the Clooney Building
Okay.
as well. It's just that somebody with a very popular name, Thomas Jefferson, last name is kind of different, but here he was. He was the youngest attorney ever elected to become an attorney in California state history. All right, and we're going to go back that way.
Have in common is symbolism. And you'll see headstones with fingers pointing up, fingers pointing down, hands clasped. You'll see columns that are cut down. They all have a meaning. And if you look right up here, there's an urn with a draped cloth on it. And that draped cloth is to signify the veil between the living and the dead. And it basically just means that person has passed on into the afterlife. And even on this one right here, where it just looks like a rectangle, it's actually cut into the stone, a shroud on there as well. If you take a look at it, you'll see it kind of wrapping around this side, and it'll generally just be on half of the stone. And so, like I said, it's the veil between the living and the dead. But and as Tina pointed out, not all the Masons are buried in the Masonic lawn or in the plot. So you see them around here. You'll see the square and compass. And she was speaking of the Oddfellows. Those are 3 linked chains, and sometimes they'll just be the 3 chains, or they'll be the letters FLT, and that's friendship, loyalty, and trust. And if you go into Placerville, there's an Oddfellows Lodge up there, and you'll see the 3 chains, and it's always at the top of the building, and you'll see it kind of looks like a neon sign, but it's just up Main Street from the bell tower, and that's where that one is. But there's Masonic halls, Oddfellow halls, all over California, and they're really nondescript because they're not trying to entice you in. They're there doing their thing. So we're going to come on right down here. Fred and Malcolm are going to talk a little bit more at the funeral chapel.
One of the most well-known men in California history was Sam Brannan. And he owned most of the houses of prostitution that built the Embarcadero in San Francisco, but he was also a Mason. We're all human.
Malcolm, Fred, if you guys want to come up here so you can grandstand.
You want to sit down and rest?
Well, you can lean against that too in case you're getting tired.
Probably not. I'll go up.
You can do that.
Yeah, Malcolm can come up.
There you go.
I use the ramp. Okay. Well, a question was asked, how old is masonry? Well, we don't know how old masonry is. It is, though, the oldest and largest fraternal organization in the world. They go back several thousand years. Like, we don't know how old exactly, where it started, how it started. Or,
Some say it goes back to the building of King Solomon's Temple. We don't know, really. Masonry was actually, they were masons, actual true masons. They built
stone masons.
They built the cathedrals in Europe, okay? And if you go back there, you'll see the mason's mark on the cathedrals, on some of the stones.
Every mason had their own mark that were a stonemason,
That's how they got paid.
and that's how they got paid, yep.
And it's interesting because over the years, Freemasons adopted the tools of a regular mason to mean it what we want it to mean. Okay? Like the trowel you use to spread cement. That's what the trowel's for. We use the trowel for spreading the cement of brotherly love. That's what it means to us. And we've adapted the different tools for us.
The square,
Right, go ahead.
and the compass. Well, the square, we use the square our actions. The compass, we use to circumscribe our desires. The square.
Right. So that's what that means.
It's many moral usages we use today that the old masons of Europe and other countries used as their working tools. We have a rule, a 24-inch gauge. They use it to gauge their stones. We use it to gauge our time. We break it down into 3 parts. A time for the service of God, time for rest and refreshment,
We have time for work.
and time for work.
A couple of people have asked, are there organizations for the women? There are. There's Eastern Star. We've talked about that. There's the Order of the Amaranth. I don't know anything about the Order of the Amaranth. I
have one.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's the Ladies of the Beauseant Society, which belong to the Knights Templars. Okay. Those are the 3 ladies' organizations. Now, can a woman become a Mason? Yes.
The answer is yes.
In England and in Europe, they have women Masons.
And in California.
Okay. Now, can they attend the men's lodges? No. We consider them a clandestine group, and we don't recognize them. In England, they don't recognize them, although they have their own Grand Lodge.
Now, can a man join the women Masons? No.
I wish I could.
They don't want no part of it.
I
You
wish I
have to
could.
wear one of those purple dresses and,
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
poofy purple dress.
Actually, my aunt in England is a Mason. Her daughter is a Mason. And they wear the same stuff we do.
A little bit more. You ought to see some of
they
the
get-
elaborate
They get pretty fancy.
jewels and elaborate regalia that they have. Much more elaborate than ours.
So yeah, there's Helen. What's her name? Helen Mirren, the actress Helen Mirren. If you ever see her, she has a Masonic symbol tattooed right here on her hand. She is a Mason. Okay? So, yes, ladies can become Masons in the men's organization, although we don't recognize it. Okay? But there are women Masons, which...
Careful.
That's a man and wife. They years ago, it appears that masonry was kind of supposed to have been hush hush, secret. We are not secret. We wouldn't be here. We would be having a secret meeting somewhere that nobody knew about. We're up front. We're out front, and we want everybody to know that we are not secret.
Most of us wear some kind of a Masonic. I used to wear Masonic rings. I was up front, and I'm a Mason. I'm proud of it. But I don't wear the rings anymore because my hands are so arthritic they can't stand the weight.
And the only thing I got all kinds of jewelry. I got necklaces. I got rings. I wear a belt buckle, and that's about all you'll see me ever wear. Maybe. I worked all my life, 40 years of it anyway, where I was not allowed to wear any jewelry. So,
by the way, he's the only guy I know that you can give him a pile of junk and he'll build an airplane.
build an airplane, yeah.
That's what he did. He built airplanes.
Yep,
so he can give him a pile of metal junk and he'll build you an airplane.
I played with airplanes for 40-something years. And I enjoyed it. It was fun. And I drove a school bus for 13?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going on 17 now.
He's going on 17.
Yes.
So what are Knights Templar?
Okay, yeah. Now, the one to become a Knights Templar, one must first be a Master Mason. Okay? There's what we call the York Rite of Masonry. Now, the York Rite of Masonry was, the charter is still in, they got it, in the year 926. Fellow by the name of King Athelstan, the first king of all England, formed the York Rite of Masonry in York, England. He got the craftsmen and the knights together. Now, way back before then, when the Knights were formed, they were actually the guards. They patrolled the roads that led from Europe to the Holy Land. Now, the Holy Land is Jerusalem. And that's where they were formed, by 9 monks. And they formed a group, and they patrolled and kept the pilgrims, that's where that word comes from, traveling to the Holy Land from, they had the highwaymen, the robbers, the crooks, and all that.
Now, during that period, they were also known as, besides the guards of patrol, they were also known as the Hospitallers. Where the name hospital comes from.
Yep.
Because if you were overtaken by the highwaymen, they would patch you up. That was their job. They were the Hospitallers. Okay? So that's where the hospitals come from. It's from us. Now, we also fought in the Holy Wars. Crusades.
Everybody knows about the Crusades, I hope.
Anyone else
Yeah,
interested?
there was 7 of them.
Now,
7 Crusades.
Now, the Crusades that go back to Jerusalem, they're in the army. There may have only been 2 Knights Templar. The rest were just serfs that were fighting.
More like
They were just
virtual Templars.
yeah. But there may have only been 2 true Knights Templar in the whole group. There weren't a lot of us.
Yeah. Now,
And there still
the
aren't.
reason being is the Knights Templars, the true Knights Templars, took 2 oaths more than we did. One of them is they never get married, and the other one was abstinence. If I pronounce the word correctly, they we're not to have any contact with women at all. The true Templars. They're still what they call Knights. I think it's Knights of Jerusalem.
I
They
would not have
take
been
them
one of
too.
those.
Also, I'm not. Yeah, we.
I would not have been one of those.
Yeah, they still exist today. In order to this, yeah, God, when back in the 9th century, 8th century, somewhere back there. That's a couple of years ago. Yeah, now masonry, one must be a master mason. Next, one in York, right? One must be a royal arch mason, which is another part of the Masonic builders. It's a separate organization in England. Okay. Next, one must be a cryptic mason or a council member. Then you can join the commander, Knights Templar.
Now, in order to be a Knights Templar and to join the York Rite, you must be a Christian.
Well, yeah, Knights Templar. There's a lot of Masons that are not Christian, and they can't join. They won't join us because they're not Christian. We are a Christian organization. There's a shrine. Everybody, I'm a Shriner. I don't know about
No, I
you're
know.
not. A Shriner. And then there's also the Scottish Rite. And
Never
I
joined.
remember. I'm in everything. I don't know why, but I've been a Shriner for 35 years. Scottish Rite for 35 years. I think I got involved in both. Never been to a meeting. I just pay them my dues. Which is good. It's okay, fine. I don't bother. But I got involved in York Rite. Real heavy and strong. I was going, like we said, probably 5-6 times a week off somewhere. And that's why I call my wife, she's the Royal Arch Widow. Because I was always gone. But when I went to the other function, some other function, she was always with. She, by the way, is a boasting hunt and Easter stuff. Oh, Amaret.
Yeah, she's a
Yeah, all of them. We had fun together.
Funny
Only
story
trouble
about
is-
funny story about Fred and I. I had just joined the Masonic organization, the Blue Lodge. That's where you start. And a friend of mine was a Blue Lodge member and a Scottish Rite member. So he dragged me along to a Scottish Rite installation. I had never seen this man before in my life. And I'm sitting on the aisle, and here comes Fred down the aisle, and he stops. And he looks at me. He doesn't know who I am, and he says, "I got big plans for you," and shook my hand and kept going.
Yeah.
And then he got me roped into this organization, and then I got roped into the Grand Lodge. I don't know how he did it, but he did it.
I got you in it.
But yeah, I never met this man. He just stopped and said, "I got big plans for you."
Yeah, it was.
And we've been traveling ever since.
Well, I knew his friend
Glenn.
I knew Glenn, and I stopped and said, "Hi, Glenn. How are you?" And then Malcolm was sitting right there, and that's how I met Malcolm, and that's 25-something years ago.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Huh?
We'll talk later. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's see here. Is there any truth to the fact that Aleister Crowley was a member of the Freemasons?
Who?
Aleister Crowley.
I don't even know who he is.
He is basically the one who was like basically at the forefront of the occult in the late 1800s.
Well,
He's-
I don't know. There were so many. Yeah.
He claims to say that he was 33 degree Freemason.
Well, that's in the Scottish Rite only. So
Okay.
if he was, he may have been. There's probably been a lot that are way back that weaved their way into our
Okay.
organization. Yeah.
Okay. Which, Aleister Crowley, like, influenced, the writer or author H.P. Lovecraft, and Anton LaVey, who was the founder of the Church of Satan, was also a huge fan of his work. But totally.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, but anywho, now I'm a Christian, and I come from the church background that I kind of side with right at the moment, and have for a while, is Pentecostal.
Okay.
And within the Pentecostal church, they believe that the Freemasons are evil. Yeah, they're evil or satanic, this and that.
My kid brother is too, and I talked to him, and he says, and he's saying, "No, we're not a cult.
Okay.
Never have been." Yeah.
So, I did a little bit of research. I can't remember the priest's name, and I think it was in the 15th or 16th century, and I think that's where the whole thing with the Catholic Church basically came out and said that, you should not be involved in this and that.
It was the Protestants and the Presbyterians, all of them, the Catholic Church kind of frowned upon them. But, a lot of times, many popes in the ancient years were also Freemasons. But now that's kind of changed. But they're coming around. They don't worry about it too much anymore. Because I know a lot of Catholics that were the Masons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You guys also have the one symbol that's like the upside down star in the circle, which looks like a pentagram. I was just wondering, I know you probably can't reveal exactly what that means, but I was just wondering, how often does that symbol get mixed up with being a pentagram?
Probably do quite a bit. Although the symbol itself is just a symbol for the Eastern Star is always pointed down. The Eastern Star always looked like it was pointed down, and then the Star of David was pointing down.
Okay. Is it true that Joseph Smith, who founded the Mormon Church, is it true that a lot of the rituals that they do is a complete ripoff of Masons?
He was a Master Mason himself.
Okay.
So he knew the ritual, so they kind of adopted it.
Okay.
That our ritual and their ritual are very similar.
Okay. Do you guys wear magic underwear? Well, yeah, Mormons wear magic underwear. I was wondering, do you guys wear magic underwear?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. No. All right. I just want to make sure that...
I don't know.
So, one last question. If it came down to you, you dying for something, would you die for Christ or would you die for the Masons?
Well, both. I'd probably die for Christ if it would come to that. It's
Okay.
like Malcolm. We took the same vows. He's waiting for me.
Okay.
But if he was in great danger of losing his life, I would gladly give mine to save him.
Yeah.
And he would be me too.
And like the scripture says, he who probably lays down his life for another person.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's cool. All right, I just had, that was another thing that just kind of popped in my mind. And but I just thank you so much for answering my questions.
Okay, very good.
And no disrespect. I wanted to come out here and just kind of see for myself what this was all about, despite what I was told in church. And I, you guys do a lot of good.
Yeah, well,
the Shriners and whatnot, all that.
We are not a cult.
Okay.
Never have been, and let's hope we never are.
Hopefully not.
Okay.
All right. Well, God bless America, and thank you so much for everything. And you also said you served our country.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
32 years worth.
All right. Thank you so much for my freedom. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for everything. Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah. Go for it. Thank you.